Okay, so the recording has started.
Great. So should I just dive in, or did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, I will say a few words.
Okay.
So, thank you everyone for joining today. This is a very important topic to discuss today, and working while receiving public benefits is the topic today. And we have Ellen Cookman from Cookman Law. She is the principal attorney of Cookman Law and a certified specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law from the California State Bar Board of Legal Specialization. She received a JD from UC Berkeley School of Law and her LLM in estate planning, trust, and probate from Golden Gate University. Ellen lives in Palo Alto with a husband and two boys, and a Siberian Husky mix named Rosie, and kitty names Kitties. Thank you, Ellen. Ellen has always been a partner with Inclusive World. Last year, she came to Inclusive World and talked about transitioning to adulthood and another very important topic. And today we are going to talk about working while receiving public benefits. There are a lot of myths about this topic and a lot of fear around working, especially for our neurodiverse young adults who aspire to work. So I think today Ellen will be busting some of the myths, and this will be a wonderful opportunity for you to learn more. And also, in the end, I think Ellen will share her contact information. If you need to reach out to her after this, you can definitely do so or avail her services. And just one line about Inclusive World, we have a lot of participants who probably are not familiar with Inclusive World. We are a Bay Area based nonprofit organization. We have a center in Milpitas. We offer vocational skills programming and training to neurodiverse youth ages 13 plus and neurodiverse young adults. We offer vocational skills classes over weekends for ages 13 plus, and we have a weekday vocational skills program for young adults. Check out our website, inclusiveworld.org, to learn more. And if you have any questions, reach out to us, info@inclusiveworld.org. With that, I'm handing this over to Ellen. Please.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And I really do want to lift up Inclusive World. I think you guys do such a great job preparing your kiddos for work and employment. And so I think this partnership that we have right now is so important. And it really works. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Is my screen being shared right now?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, good. Okay, good. So we can just dive right in. So as mentioned, we are going to be talking about when our kids work while they're receiving public benefits. So we already, I had a wonderful introduction there. One thing I do want to mention is that my older son has high functioning autism. He's 12, and then I have an 12 and a half, and then I have an 11-year-old who's neurotypical. So we span the gamut. We haven't, gotten to age 18 where you look at public benefits that we'll talk about, but it's definitely on the horizon. But I love working in the special needs community. I actually started before my son was diagnosed. I started working with special needs families, and it's really an honor. Okay, so what are we looking at today? We are doing an overview first of public benefits to kind of give you an idea of working while receiving which public benefits are impacted, which are not, what are available to everybody. Okay, and then we're going to look at specifically at cash benefits and the rules for those. And then finally, we'll look at some of the work incentives that are available. So let's look at public benefits overview. And I believe I share this slide a lot, and it's kind of before I show it to you, I want to warn you, there's a lot of information on one slide, but I'm going to kind of walk you through what it all means and why it's important. And so the way I like thinking about this is for people who work and they support themselves, they get two main things from working. They get an income stream, which is your salary, and then they also get health insurance based on their employment. Now, someday I hope that the US will join the rest of all of the, countries of the world, the developed countries that just provide health insurance to everybody, but we're not there yet. So our worry is that when somebody is not able to work and support themselves due to their disability, they're entitled to services from the government. Okay, so it's kind of to replace what they were to receive if they were working. All right. So these are the different public benefits. And there's more than these, but these are the main ones that we're going to focus on tonight. So we have at the top left, we have supplemental security income. That's SSI. That's the most restrictive one. That's the one that Social Security Administration runs, and they look with a fine-tooth comb to see, do you qualify, do you not? So after a child turns 18, all of a sudden the parent's money and income is not attributable to the child, so the child becomes poor, and usually they would have resources of under $2,000. Now, if they already have, say, a custodial account set up or they have their own money, then they might need to do some things to lower their countable assets to below 2,000. But once they get below 2,000 and Social Security Administration considers you disabled, you can start receiving a monthly income stream, which this year in California is about $1,200 a month. It's lower in other states, but here it's $1,200 a month. Um, and then if you get even $1 of SSI, you automatically qualify for Medi-Cal, which is California's version of the federal Medicaid health insurance system, right? And Medi-Cal, in every other state, Medi-Cal looks at your resources. So they look to see, okay, do you have 2,000, just like SSI, do you have $2,000 or more? Then you don't qualify. But here in California, we actually last year eliminated the resource limit. So they don't look at your resources anymore, but they do look at your income. They look at earned income and unearned income. And so for those reasons, we're really concerned. We want to make sure that earned income and unearned income do not interfere with Medi-Cal benefits, especially because under the Medi-Cal umbrella is IHSS, in-home supportive services. And for our kids who have challenges with activities of daily living and they need support at home, this can pay for a caregiver, sometimes a parent, to take care of the child. And it can be very, very important. So we really want to make sure that we keep Medi-Cal and IHSS eligibility in just about all cases. Okay, so then down at the bottom left is an entitlement-based program called Social Security Disability Insurance. So I want to stop and point out, look, the top one is SSI and the bottom one is SSDI. You see how similar those names are? It can drive you nuts. It drives me nuts. Okay, so and I deal with this all the time. It's very difficult to distinguish between the two. But SSDI is basically somebody who's paid into the system for a while. Okay, they've put money aside for Social Security, and then they become disabled, or they have someone who retires, and then and I'll explain how. But a child can also receive benefits under a parent's retirement, and that's called child disability benefits, and that's one of the really important ones. Okay, for SSDI, there is an income limit of about $1,500 a month, and they only look at your earned income to see whether you've gone above the SSDI limit. They don't look at your unearned income. So if we're thinking about, for example, special needs trusts, you need a special needs trust if you're getting SSI or Medi-Cal because they're looking at unearned income. That would be income generated in a trust. But you don't necessarily need a special needs trust for SSDI or CDB benefits. All right, so it's a little bit complicated. Okay, then one of the best things about SSDI and CDB benefits is that after 2 years, you qualify for Medicare, all right, which most people get, well, everybody is entitled to it at age 65, but you can get that earlier if you're disabled and you're getting SSDI or child disability benefits. Medicare, they don't look at your income limit and they don't look at your resource limit. But if you're receiving Medicare because of SSDI, we're going to look at that connection and see, well, what happens if you're off of SSDI? So we'll look at that. Okay, one other thing I want to look at with public benefits is to let you know that it's not a static determination. These things change as time goes on. So I did this chart based on the child's perspective. So your child, when they're born at age 0, okay, they can be entitled to Medicare, I'm sorry, Medi-Cal, which in this slide it says Medicaid because that's the federally based one, and under a waiver program. And once they turn 18, they can qualify for, they start receiving SSI, right? Because the parent's money is not attributable to the child. They're under $2,000 of resources, so they can get SSI. Okay, so now time goes on, and now let's say their parent, the child's parent, retires. What happens? They can start getting CDB benefits under the parent's work record. And then after 2 years after that, they can start receiving Medicare. So now at that point, they might be receiving just about all of these: Medicare, SSDI, maybe SSI if SSDI didn't go above that amount, and Medi-Cal. Okay, then when the parent dies, the child gets 3/4 of what the parent was getting, and then the child passes away. So you can see that, right now, your child might be receiving something different than they receive 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So you're always needing to circle back and see, okay, which one applies where. So now let's dive into, and let me mention also, I have a YouTube channel where I talk about all of these different benefits. Okay, so if you have a question, go into YouTube and type in, Ellen Cookman, and then, whatever your question might be, or, SSDI benefits, and it'll come up. All right, so what I really want to focus on next are the 2 cash benefits. So I want to look at and help you distinguish between SSI and SSDI, which, remember, under SSDI is that child disability benefit umbrella. So first, let's look at SSI, supplemental security income. So as we mentioned, when the child turns 18, all of a sudden they're an adult, which I always think is funny because if you know 18-year-olds, some of them are not adulting even when they're neurotypical. But that's when people become adults in this country, and so they can qualify for SSI. They get up to about $1,207 a month. Now you notice federally in other states they get really just $967 a month. California supplements it. This is intended to pay for your shelter expenses. And we'll talk about that. So, $1,200 a month to pay for all of your shelter expenses in California, good luck. But that's where we are. And again, if you're receiving SSI, you get Medi-Cal. And you have to be considered disabled. So what does that mean? They don't look at Social Security Administration. They don't look at what is your diagnosis, because when you think about it, like, let's take autism for example. You have some kids who are level 1 autism, very high functioning, Asperger's, they might be holding down a full-time job. And then you have kids who are level 3 autism who might be nonverbal, maybe they need full-time care. So it's not the diagnosis itself, it's how does the diagnosis affect that person's ability to work and earn substantial gainful employment, okay, which is $1,550 a month. All right, so that's kind of the bare minimum. All right, but if you're not able to work and earn that much because of your disability, you can qualify for SSI. Now, having said that, there's a lot of people who apply for SSI and they're denied. And I say to you, if that's happened to you, then please appeal, because I'd say about 40% of all SSI applications are granted, but 50% of all appeals are granted. And there are professionals that you can work with, but it really is it's imperfect, but it's very helpful. So I think it's worth really pursuing in most situations. Okay, so with SSI, they look at your resources. So you have to keep your resources under $2,000. But they also look at your income. And there's several different types of income for SSI purposes. There's earned income, and that's really what we're focusing on this evening, which includes your wages, and if you're self-employed, any income you get from that. And there are some exclusions that we'll cover. Okay, unearned income can be any Social Security disability insurance payments, workers' comp, any income coming from trusts, um, and help from other people for your housing, for your shelter. That's also considered unearned income. It's called in-kind support and maintenance. Now, there are some exclusions for SSI income, okay? So if you have an ABLE account and the ABLE account is paying for something for you, that's not considered income. Also, if you have a special needs trust and the special needs trust is paying for things directly for you, that's not considered income. And so just like, bills paid by someone else, that could be a special needs trust. It could be a parent. As long as the parent or the special needs trust is not giving the child income, that would be considered unearned income if you're getting gifts, if you're getting a stipend, an allowance. Okay, so you don't want to do that if a child's receiving SSI. Now, there's some rules that have changed recently for the good. All right, for in-kind support and maintenance, it used to be that SSI was intended to pay for your food, clothing, and shelter. Well, clothing, that element was done away with recently, or yeah, about 10 years ago. And then food was just eliminated. So they don't look at who's paying for your food. They only look at who's paying for your shelter. All right. And if the child is paying a specific amount for their own shelter expenses, then they don't get the ISM deduction. And that amount is $334 a month. It used to be that you had to go and find out what's the fair, like if your child was renting a room from you, what's the fair market value of living in a room and renting out a room in your home, right? And you'd have to calculate that and prove it. But now it's just $334 a month, which most likely is much lower than what you would charge to rent out a room in your home if you are in the Bay Area. Then also to qualify for SSI, you used to need to have every family member in your house receiving some form of public benefits. Now you just need two, the applicant and one other person. So that's helpful. And also if SSI says, oh, we've overpaid you, and they used to withhold your entire SSI payment until they sorted it out, and that could take like 2 or 3 years. Now they don't do that. Now they only withhold 10% of the SSI check. So that's really good. All right, so now let's look at a little bit about SSDI, and then we'll look at the work incentives. So SSDI, so this is somebody who's paid into the system, and usually it's 20 credits, which needed to be earned in the last 10 years. So there's specific rules because for people who are younger, they need to earn fewer credits just because they haven't had time to work up to that many credits. SSDI, as I mentioned, does not look at passive income. And then also SSDI reduces SSI. So if you're getting $1,200 a month and then you start getting $500 a month of SSDI, it will reduce your SSI by $500 minus $20. For SSDI, there's the same qualifications, the same tests to see if you actually are disabled as SSI. They're both run by Social Security Administration, so they have the same determination. Then if you do qualify for SSDI, then you get money based on how many credits you've worked. And a lot of times it's more than what you'd get on SSI, but not always. And then of course, after 24 months, and if it's SSDI, they make you do another 5-month waiting period, then you get Medicare. So who can get SSDI? Well, the worker themselves, right? If they work and pay in long enough and then they become disabled, they can get SSDI. If they're married, then their spouse can get an income stream based on the worker's record. If they were married and then the spouse is widowed, and the spouse is disabled, the spouse can get money too. So there's a lot of people who can. And then the one on the right, the child, okay? If you have a child who's under 18, they can receive an income stream. And also, if they're unmarried and they became disabled before age 22, that's CDB benefits. Okay, so this one on the right, child disability benefits. So what is that? It used to be called Disabled Adult Child Benefits. They changed the name. So if you see DAC benefits, it's the same thing. So basically, these adults, they had to become disabled before age 22, but usually they start getting these benefits starting at age 18. And they look at the parent's earning records. So let's say the parent is receiving, $4,000 a month, a very large amount. Then the child can receive half of what the parent was getting, $2,000 a month. All right. And then when the parent dies, the child can get 3/4 of what the parent was getting, $3,000 a month. So it's really a powerful benefit. And they don't look at your passive income and they don't look at your resources. So it's pretty cool that way. All right, so let's dive into why you're here, the work incentives. Why are there work incentives? And these are things that the government provides, all right? The government is saying, hey, we want to help you, disabled person who wants to work. We want to help you maintain your cash benefits as much as possible. And we also want to help you maintain your health insurance. We recognize how important it is to have health insurance. They also want to help people to reach their vocational goals. So to provide incentives to put aside money for education, for, purchasing things that help people, become employed in the way that they wish to. They want to help ensure a smooth transition as much as possible into the workforce. So their goal, if somebody's on SSI or SSDI, they want to get them off of SSI or SSDI by helping them to work. And honestly, I think that's all of our goals too, right? We want our kids as much as possible to be able to work, but we also want a safety net. And that's this next one, to provide a quick way to start receiving the cash benefits again if the child becomes unable to work. So we want them to be able to fall back onto the benefits that they had before if if something happens and they can't work anymore. Overall, we're incentivizing them. So let's dive into some of them. And I have a note here. This is not a comprehensive list. I've chosen some of the most popular ones, some of the ones that my clients deal with, but there's others as well. So if you're receiving SSI and or SSDI, if your child does, these can apply to you. These 4 programs, either one or both. So and we'll go over them. So impairment related work expenses, the ticket to work program, the PASS program, and the expedited reinstatement program. And we'll make sure that everybody can get these slides. So don't feel like you have to quickly, write down everything. All right, so what is the first one? Impairment related work expenses. Okay, so what happens here is if you're able to work, but there's certain things that you need in order to work, like you need a taxi to get to work because you can't take the bus, or you need a wheelchair, or you need to, if you have other medical expenses relating to work, you can deduct those from your earnings. So it looks like you're not earning as much and you can keep more of your cash benefits, right? Now, you do have to prove that you actually have these expenses. You need to show the original receipts or the canceled checks. And there's no fixed list. Like, these are the impairment related work expenses. But I did find some lists where they're showing examples of what is one of these expenses and what is not. And you probably can't read this because it's very small. But, let's look at the top left one. And I'm going to even make it a little bit bigger where I am. So transportation costs. Okay, if you need to modify, let's say modify a van to be able to travel to work, that you can deduct from your income, okay? If you need paratransit, a special bus, or something else that you're paying for to get to and from work, that can be deducted, okay, and mileage expenses. But you can't deduct things that are not related to work, all right? So you have to show that there's a connection between work and the work expense that you have. Attendant care services, we have service animals, like a guide dog that can help you at work, and their care needs, different medical devices, wheelchairs, pacemakers, traction equipment. If you have a prosthesis that helps you to work, modifications to the exterior of your house, like if you need to put in a ramp so you can get in and out of your house so you can go to work. I mean, it might seem a little bit distant, but that one is typically approved. If there are certain medications that you need to take to be able to work. So you get the idea, right? These are things that help you to work, and therefore you can deduct it from the income. Okay, so the next one is the Ticket to Work program. Now, the goal of the Ticket to Work program is really, there's several goals. First of all, they want to pair up each child, and by child I mean, someone aged, typically it's age 18 and over, but in our minds they'll always be our children, right? So they pair them up with somebody who can help them with like a job coach, or someone who can help with job placement. And that can be through the regional center or through the Department of Rehab. And they help you put together a plan for reaching your personal employment goals. So it's not just, hey, I think I want to get a job in this. Well, they sit down and they say, okay, well, what type of training do we need for that? What sorts of steps are we going to take? So they really break it down and say, okay, we need this, and then we need this, and then we need this. And while you're in that program, Social Security Administration will not look to see if you're still disabled. They will assume that you continue to be disabled. So that's really nice. And you keep getting your Medi-Cal and Medicare benefits through when you're in the Ticket to Work program. So again, this is intended to kind of help do a little soft launch into working. Now, here's another one, Plan for Achieving Self-Support, or a PASS program. So this allows somebody who's receiving SSA or SSI to set aside some of their income to put towards a vocational goal. So it might be, a training school. It might be some form of internship, all right? So again, you have to write up a plan, kind of like a business plan, but this is like your plan for obtaining employment, or you can have a plan for starting your own business. Okay. Now you still need to meet the financial rules of SSI, so you still need to have under $2,000 of countable assets to participate in this. And this can actually help if you really want to be, have full employment at a very good place. So who is eligible? So either you're already eligible for SSI and your income reduces the amount of SSI you'd have, or you would otherwise be eligible for SSI. And this is intended to help transition off or reduce the need for government benefits. So I have an example here. So here's Sylvia, and she wants to go to school to become a legal secretary, and she gets $1,300 a month in SSDI benefits. Her goal is to get off of SSDI, to work and usually that's supposed to be your goal, okay? To work enough to not need these public benefits. So she determines, and I used very easy numbers, right? She determined that she needs $1,280 a month for all the schooling and the books and everything that she'll need in order to become a legal secretary. And there's a $20 general exclusion. So that basically brings her countable income to zero. So now Sylvia can be eligible while she's in the PASS program for the full SSI amount. Now she needs to use the SSI amount to live on and use the PASS funds for what it was already approved for. So she can't go through this and then say, oh great, I have, whatever it is, 2,500 a month, and I'm just going to enjoy that. No, the 1,300 a month needs to be devoted to her schooling. She needs to be making concrete steps towards this. And then we have the $1,207 a month that she's using to support herself during the time. All right, so the last one for SSI and SSDI folks is expedited reinstatement. And this I like to think of as the safety net. All right, so these are people they started receiving SSI or SSDI, and then they successfully returned to work, which is something we always want. However, for some reason, they became unable to work due to their disability. And that happened within 5 years of when their benefits ended because they were working. Okay, so within the next 5 years after your benefits stop, you can request something called expedited reinstatement. So what happens is you get your temporary cash benefits that you would otherwise receive for 6 months while Social Security Administration does a medical review to determine if you'll start getting your benefits. And you can receive Medicare and or Medi-Cal during this 6-month window. So it's really intended to help you get back onto public benefits if it's needed. Okay. So let me continue on, but I do encourage you, write down your questions, and I'm going to go through a few more of these, and then we can always circle back to each one that you might have questions on. Okay,
Ellen,
for
there are
those,
a bunch of questions on chat.
uh-huh.
Let me know when you think is a good time to
Okay,
respond.
well, we can pause and answer some questions if you'd like. Go ahead.
Okay. Can someone get SSI and SSDI, or is it one or the other?
Good question. So you can get, oh, you know what? I have a good example of that. It's coming up. So I will give that example really soon. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
If a non-disabled parent is retired and receiving Social Security, can the disabled child under 18 receive SSDI?
So the disabled child, if they became disabled before age 22, it's my understanding that they can start getting child disability benefits once they turn 18. So when they turn 18, then they can start getting half of what the retired parent gets.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
And this is about overpayment recoup. Um,
Yeah.
Somebody said I thought it was changing back to 100%.
That is for SSDI. For SSI, it's still at 10%.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, things may be changing completely. We don't know. But I and my crystal ball is very fuzzy, so I can't address that, but I can say where we are
Okay. And then this one says, did Ellen just say that one other family member living in the house needs to be eligible for SSI, I'm guessing, in order for the disabled individual to be eligible?
So one other family member in the house needs to be eligible for some sort of public benefit if they're
Mm-hmm.
looking at the public assistance household. Okay. And
Okay.
that could be food stamps. That could be any number of benefits. Now, if you have and that's looking at, everybody sharing their money and everything. If you have a child who's just like renting a room from a parent, then they may not be part of the same public assistance household. So the parents don't have to be on public assistance.
Okay. And the big chart that you showed us on expenses that can be towards working, is lift to and from work, is that added? Lift or
It should be. It should be
any
if that's what.
transportation.
Yeah, yeah. Any transportation that helps you get to and from work. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And is there a time limit to the duration that one can be enrolled in the PASS program?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I do know that you have to be actively taking steps, and I do think there is a limit, but I don't have that number. I would have to look that up.
Okay. How is income limit determined? Is it at the time of applying for SSI or any time during the individual's lifetime?
It's both. They look at your income. Well, sorry, they look at your resources when you apply for SSI, and then they look at your resources and income every month when you're receiving SSI.
Okay. Is there an age limit to get CBD?
Age 18 is when you can start getting it.
Okay. What does it take for employers that we, which is Inclusive World, we currently partner with, to be part of Ticket to Work? Or can
Oh,
any
wow.
employers be eligible to recruit members who are part of the Ticket to Work program?
As far as I know, it can be any employer.
Okay.
I don't know of any limits, but don't hold me to that. But I'm
Okay.
not aware of any limits.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. I think we
Okay,
covered all the questions. Yeah.
great. Wow, good questions. Okay, so let's barrel on ahead and we're going to look at if your child is just getting SSI, then these three programs apply. And the first one kind of addresses SSI and SSDI and how those interact, I believe. Well, let's take a look. Okay, so we have the earned income exclusion. We have section 1619B, and we have the student earned income exclusion. So what is the earned income exclusion? So what happened is when people are receiving an SSI income stream of $1,200 a month, the government wants to encourage you to work. And so they say, okay, we're not going to reduce your SSI check dollar for dollar if, for your earnings. Instead, we're going to basically reduce it $1 of $1 reduction for every $2 that you earn after having a few exclusions. So you see the first $20 of earnings excluded, and then the next $65 of earnings is excluded, and then half of the remaining earnings are excluded. So I have an example here that I'll walk you through. So we have somebody named Sam. He is receiving SSDI of $551 every month and $350 in wages. Okay, so notice that SSDI is unearned income and $350 the wages is earned income. Okay, so let's start with the SSDI, the unearned income. $551 of SSDI, only the general income exclusion applies. So that's $20 exclusion. So we have $531 of countable unearned income. So then the next line, we look at the earned income of $350. Well, we get the earned income exclusion of $65, so we subtract that. So there's $285 of countable earned income. So now we add the two together, countable earned plus countable unearned income, $816. So now we look to see, okay, can we get any SSI? Because SSI is intended to supplement any income you're already receiving. That's why it's called supplemental security income. So somebody had asked, can you get SSDI and SSI at the same time? Yes. If your SSDI and your other income is lower than the full amount that you can receive for SSI, you can get SSI as well. So in here we'll see, for 2025, the most you can get for SSI is $1,207. All right, so if we subtract the total countable income from that $1,207, we get $391 of SSI. So Sam will be getting his $551 of SSDI, his earned income of $350, and then his SSI payment of $391. So in total, what he'll be bringing into his pocket is $1,292 a month. Okay, so you see how that works. As clear as mud, right?
Uh,
Yes.
Excuse me, Ellen, I'm interrupting you because don't we just take half of that countable income? Isn't that how the calculation is done? The
Did I?
the
Oh my
reduction
goodness,
is half of the countable income, right? So
it is. I
yeah,
didn't do that. I didn't.
yeah.
I didn't put that. So the count. You are absolutely right. Thank you. This is the first time I'm doing these slides. So
No problem.
yes. So the countable earned income, the 285, should be divided in half. Okay. So the total countable income will be about $140 less than this. That'll be $670. So we'll subtract $670. Thank you, Gary, from 1207. We have some math people here. And we get maybe 500 SSI payment. So we're bringing in even more. So there you go. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so now let's go on to the 1619B work program. So this program is really intended for people who are on Medi-Cal to keep their Medi-Cal benefits. Okay. So if you're getting SSI, but then you start earning money and that would reduce your SSI benefits to 0, you can continue to receive your Medi-Cal and not have what we call a share of cost, which you can watch a video if you want to see that. It's punishing. So this works if you have received SSI in the past 12 months and you continue to meet several requirements and you need your Medi-Cal coverage to continue to work. And then your income is lower than about $64,500 annually. Now there are some exceptions to this. Some people who earn even more than this. I have some clients whose daughter is profoundly physically disabled, and she is one of the brightest people that you'd ever meet, and she works at NVIDIA. And she is under the 1619B work program because she needs to continue to receive her Medi-Cal benefits and her IHSS benefits to continue to be able to get up in the morning and have a caregiver help to bathe her and dress her and everything so that she can go to work. Okay, so this allows her to keep her Medi-Cal benefits even if she's not getting SSI anymore. Okay, so now we have the student earned income exclusion, and this is intended for students. All right, so if you have an undergrad student, basically, because it's under age 22, if they're not the head of the household and they're not married and they're attending school regularly, then they can exclude some income and continue to receive their SSI stream as well. All right, so here are some requirements. You really do need to be attending. It's not like, oh, I'm taking, one class remotely. You actually need to be enrolled in school. And it can also apply to high school students who are working 12 hours a week. So the maximum amount that a student can exclude is $2,350 monthly up to $9,460 annually. So I kind of think of this as the summer work exclusion, or maybe it's, you have like a side job for $400 a month. So, once it goes over $9,460 annually, then you do the exclusion, the earned income exclusion that we talked about, where, you deduct $1 for every $2 earned. Okay, so I have an example here. So here we have Carlos. He's receiving the full amount of SSI, and he regularly attends San Jose State, and he's taking 12 units per semester. And then during the summer, he decides, I want to work full time, and he gets $2,000 a month for June, July, and August. So his earnings are less than the monthly cap, and when you add them up, $6,000, it's less than the annual cap of $9,460. So he can keep receiving his SSI benefits of $1,207 a month because his earnings for the $2,000 a month for June, July, and August qualify for the student earned income exclusion. So all of his earnings are excluded. So he continues to receive his $1,207 a month during June, July, and August. And when you add up how much he's getting per month, it's pretty nice, $3,277 a month. All right. Okay, so then there's just a few that are just SSDI. So trial work period, extended period of eligibility, and continuation of Medicare coverage. So let's dive into that. So trial work period. So this is really, if somebody's receiving SSDI and they want to try out working, that's the idea, they're trying it out, then the first 9 months that they're able to work over a 5-year period, they still get their SSDI benefits. Okay, while they're working and are earning money. And they could be earning a lot of money. So that's great, but they can keep getting that. So that's the trial work period. It's the first 5-year period. But after they've worked 9 months, and it doesn't have to be consecutive, then it moves into the next one. It moves into the extended period of eligibility. which is the next 3 years, right? So for every month that the person participating in this does not go up to $1,620 a month, they get to get their full SSDI benefits. When they go over that amount, then their cash benefits are suspended. Okay, so the first time it goes over that amount, it says that the disability has ceased and they can continue, but that month plus the next 2 months, they still get their SSDI benefits. So that's their grace period. Then after that, after 3 months of earning above the SGA limit and receiving SSDI benefits, they stop receiving their SSDI benefits and they're just earning their salary. So this kind of, I have this kind of like, this is how it works. So top left, you're approved for SSDI, then you go through the trial work period, and then the 3 years extended period of eligibility. And then if you're not able to work, you can go through expedited reinstatement to go back onto SSDI benefits. So you might be worried, well, hold on, I got Medicare because I got SSDI. What happens if I lose SSDI? Do I lose Medicare? Well, happily, the first 7.5 years after you've stopped receiving SSDI benefits because you're working, you still get Medicare. And then after that 7.5, it's very random, 93 months. That just sounds strange, but after that 7.5 years, then a person can buy into Medi-Cal coverage. Medicare coverage. All right, one slide on ABLE accounts. So I have 4 videos on ABLE accounts. I love ABLE accounts. If you put earned money into an ABLE account, that doesn't make it unearned income. However, it does help with your resource limit. So if you earn money and you don't want to hold on to it, and the next month it becomes you're over $2,000, you can turn around and put your earned money into an ABLE account, and you can put in up to $15,000 of earned income above, even if somebody else has already put in $19,000 into your ABLE account. So it's kind of an extra benefit for somebody who's working. And that's if you're not receiving retirement benefits through your employer. And then also the first $100,000 of resources in an ABLE account is excluded from the SSI resource limit. So that's nice as well. So you might be like, well, Ellen, these things seem really cool, but I'm kind of struggling to figure out which benefit my child's receiving. How do I tell? Because they don't make it easy for you to figure this out. So in general, if you get the date that the benefits are deposited into your account, if it's on the 1st of the month, usually it's SSI. And if it's on the 3rd of the month, usually it's SSDI, or you're receiving both SSI and SSDI. Another way to tell is if your child's receiving more than $1,200 a month, they're probably getting CDB benefits. But how can you tell for sure? Reach out to Social Security Administration, and they can either send you a letter confirming it, or you can also call and wait for a while, because it takes 2 or 3 hours if you've ever tried to find out. So then you might be thinking, well, which work incentives can my child receive? So you can reach out to Social Security Administration, and you should complete something called a benefits planning query, a BPQY. This is Social Security Administration's form 2459. And this is what it looks like. They'll send you a letter, and this is what to fill out. And then they'll let you know which types of work incentives you might qualify for. So they want your kids to work. They really do. Now here's some other resources. This Red Book, this SSA Red Book, is actually really easy to read, and it goes through all of these different work incentives. I think it's fabulous. So I would encourage you to go look at that. And then here are a few places that you can call to get more information. At our firm, we don't advise on work incentives. Usually we work with families. Well, here, let me just tell you. So those are the 3 benefits planners. We'll make sure that there's other ones too, but these are the ones that kind of came to mind. At our firm, as I mentioned, we don't do public benefits applications, and we don't advise on work incentives. We do estate planning, special needs planning, and trust administration. But a lot of our clients have adult kids who have disabilities who want to work. And so I think this is really, really important information to put out there. We have a completely virtual firm, so we help people all over the state of California, and we are located in Palo Alto. So this is one way that you can get onto our newsletter. Some of you are our clients, so hello. But if you're not receiving our newsletter yet, please go ahead and do the whole QR code. And also, if you do end up coming in to do your full estate plan, we will make a $300 donation to Inclusive World as a thank you. And finally, we do, as I mentioned, I have a YouTube channel, and then we are also active on social media, on Facebook and LinkedIn. So I am going to stop my share. Well, actually, I keep that up for a minute, but let's see, Madhu, if there's, I know we just hit the 1 minute mark. Do we have time for questions?
Yes, it's
Okay, good.
6:52. So yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and there are a few questions here. Okay, what? I'm trying to figure out where where I left it off. Okay. If an individual applies to SSI and gets denied, do you recommend to appeal on their own, or when do you suggest to get assistance from a firm or attorney that can help with the appeal process?
I usually recommend hiring somebody, because you probably they're not very clear about why they think your child doesn't qualify. And so usually you'll want to work, I think, with somebody who has experience with seeing, records like your child and where things need to be beefed up. What other information might you need? Do you need like a neuropsych exam? What might be helpful? So I do think that's good. And it doesn't have to be an attorney. There's consultants that do all of this that don't charge as much as an attorney. So you can work with either.
And are there any free resources that parents can avail of?
The best place that I know of for learning about resources is Parents Helping Parents.
Okay.
And they may have some people. I don't know of anybody personally who does that work for free, but there could be some.
Okay. And does Ticket to Work program only apply to SSDI, not SSI?
I think it applies to both. Let me look back at my slides. Let's see. Whoops. Ticket to Work. Okay, so that's SSI and SSDI. That's right.
Okay. For the work incentive programs, does one need to apply, or are these rather exception rules that one can just reference after the earned income have already happened?
Can you say that again?
For the I'm just reading the text.
Yeah, please.
So
Yeah.
Jin, if you're on, do you want to unmute and maybe ask your question? You will probably do a much better job than me.
Okay. Well, why don't you read it one more time, and I'll just see if I can.
Yeah. For these work incentive programs, does one need to apply, or are these rather exception rules that one can just reference after the earned income has already happened?
Okay, so if you're earning income, then the default will be the earned income exclusion for SSI. So you would need to apply through these other programs in order to, preserve certain benefits through those programs.
Okay. Another person had a question on the ABLE account.
Mm-hmm.
Investment options are limited on ABLE accounts. Are you aware of other ABLE account providers where there are more investment options, especially for those who have mobility disability but have no trouble managing their own finance investments?
Well, that one's hard because um, what CalABLE has done is they've given incentives and detriments for they really want you to use a CalABLE account. And the CalABLE account only it has like 8 different investment options, but you're right, it's not very vigorous or rigorous in being able to invest. If you are a California resident and you die and you have money in a CalABLE account, Medi-Cal will not bring a reimbursement claim against the remaining money. If you're a California resident and you have an ABLE account in a different state and you die, California can bring a reimbursement claim against the money in the ABLE account in the other state. So there's really a disincentive to set up ABLE accounts in other states when you are a California resident. So usually I would recommend for that reason. ABLE accounts are not meant to be like super duper high charged investment accounts,
Mm-hmm.
so there are some limitations, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
When should one request BPQI assessment while in college? How long does it take for Social Security to respond?
Ooh, I don't know, but I think it's worth, whenever somebody wants to start working, that can be a good time.
Okay. And can we have other ABLE accounts in addition to CalABLE at the same time?
Nope, you just get one ABLE account. That's it.
Okay. So Olga says it all sounds very complicated. I agree with her. For example, my daughter, after being on SSI for many years, was able to return to work. She had Medi-Cal, but we didn't reapply for IHSS and SSI. I'm wondering if a Medi-Cal is under the continuation of coverage. Is there a way to find out which Medi-Cal she's covered?
That is a difficult determination. You can reach out to Department of Healthcare Services because there's like 5 or 6 different ways that people can qualify for Medi-Cal nowadays. There's a group called National Care Advisors, and they help with that. But boy, yeah, that is. I'm trying to think of like different tricks to figure out. Like if you're not qualified as counted as disabled anymore, then you might be receiving low income Medi-Cal. But yeah, I really can't say.
Okay. And Daryl says, thank you for your informative presentation. And Jin says, Ellen, thank you. You're always so knowledgeable and warm. And I think we all agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's a couple of more questions. For the amazing young person working now in NVIDIA, can they keep the in-home attendance service even after the earned income exceeds $64,000?
I think in that situation, they did apply for her to be able to receive even more earned income, and she can still keep her Medi-Cal. So I think she's kind of under an exception.
Okay. One more question. When SSA sends a letter of overpayment after a child started working, shouldn't the burden of proof of overpayment fall on SSA?
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? They should, but oh no, they put all the burden on us. They want to make it as hard as possible for us so that they don't have to pay out money. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing and it drives you crazy. But this is what we have.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. So thank you all for joining, and you can always reach out to Ellen directly if you have more questions. Watch her YouTube channel on Able account and other topics. Thank you, Ellen. This is a super complicated topic, and I think you broke it down very beautifully. How can people receive your slide deck?
We can actually, if you want, we can send it along to you if you
Okay.
have the folks who have attended or who registered. I'm totally fine with that. And we can also send out
I think between you and us, we could send both the recording and the slide deck to people who join. Thank you all. I hope
Thank you.
you
Thanks so much.
learned a bunch from this and probably have even more questions. But thank you all for joining. Thank you, Ellen.
All righty. Thank you. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.